Welcome back to Technologies Now, the Business Edge, and this episode is a broker's perspective. This is the podcast where we explore how business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate professionals leverage innovation, technology, systems, and mindset to scale with purpose. I'm your host, David Urbach, and today we're joined by a true Florida retail real estate veteran, Jeffrey Stevens, a licensed real estate broker since 1991 and president of the Florida Retail Brokers Network, established to link best-in-class real estate brokers in the retail brokerage space. Jeffrey himself is a retail and restaurant site specialist, mentor, instructor, and longtime leader in the Florida commercial real estate scene. Jeffrey's experience spans 3 decades, helping national, regional, and local retail and restaurant chains thrive in Florida's dynamic market. From locating and negotiating spaces to tenant representation to investment strategy and community giving through his commercial real estate scholarships. Let's dive in, Jeffrey. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. How did you get into real estate, Jeffrey, and tell us why?
Well, I got into real estate by accident. I never would have picked it. I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to do when I was in college, and I was looking for the quickest way out. So I ended up going to 5 schools in 4 years, ended up with a degree in business administration from the University of Baltimore with a concentration in personnel management, labor relations. And like I said, it was just the quickest way to be able to get out. And I just knew I was going to be a salesman. I didn't have any other skill set really. Didn't have any mentors pushing me in any directions that made any sense. So I became a salesman, and by accident, I ended up going to work for a store fixture company selling out of a catalog, hangers and mannequins and signs for retail stores. And then I quickly realized I could make a lot more money if I were selling showcases to jewelry stores. And then I started selling custom furniture. And then I went to the owner of the company and I said, general contractors are squeezing us out, so we need to become a general contractor. So my boss got his contractor's license and we kept everything in-house. And then I have such great rapport with my clients, they would say, well, we'd love to work with you further. And I said, what's that going to take? And they said, well, go out and find us locations. So I got my real estate license and I started finding space for my clients. And I realized that it was much higher on the food chain to be on the real estate side than it was on the general construction side. The way that it works is you go find space, you negotiate space, and once it's been negotiated, then the tenant has the arduous task of getting it designed and getting it built. Well, that takes time. And the most stressful part is the contractor, because the architect took more time than they should have. The engineers took more time than they should have. So did the building department. So the contractor gets left holding the bag and gets all the stress for being late. I like being higher on the food chain so nobody can blame me anymore.
I like that. Your theme is be higher on the food chain. And clearly you kind of, as you said, you fell into real estate, but obviously retail, you were very close to very quickly. And that's clearly guided your path. So
I really enjoyed going after optical boutiques and jewelry stores and clothing stores, shoe stores. But with the advent of the superstore, Targets and the Walmart, and then Amazon online, the boutique stores really don't thrive anymore. So they all got gobbled up. And in the retail sector, the only thing that's really expanding on the regional and local level is restaurants. So I kind of morphed into that, and that's how it's gone. Now, I know there's a professor of entrepreneurship at Florida State University. His name eludes me, but he's got a really interesting perspective, and he actually owns a boutique in Tallahassee, Florida. It's called Southern Cross. And
okay.
The Southern Cross. And the key to his success is private label. And that's what he teaches. If you can private label a product, then people will come into your store. Yes, they're going to pay top retail because they're going to go home and they're going to go look for it. They can't find it. And then they go back to his store and buy it. And that's the key to his success. So there are niche ways of being successful, but it's becoming much more difficult in this modern technology-driven society that we have.
Yes, no, I can absolutely see that. So with the change with this big box stores and Amazon gobbling things up, your move over to restaurants, obviously people still need to go out to eat, and they're going to restaurants, bars, these sorts of things.
Right.
So what's the difference in your approach in tenant rep. I think you focus mostly on tenant rep, or what's your?
Tenant rep is all that I do.
Okay.
My practice, my actual real estate brokerage is 27 years old, not to be confused with the Brokers Network, which is also a licensed real estate brokerage. But my brokerage company, where I represent tenants, I started off with a partner, Jay Keefe of blessed memory. He passed away quite a few years ago. He was a strong manager. I first met him. He was the general manager of the Aventura Mall. And at the time, I was doing construction for him in the mall. So if like Starbucks wanted to do a kiosk in the middle of the
Hmm.
mall, he would contract to my company to do the infrastructure work. And then they would drop a kiosk onto the infrastructure. And one day I walked into his office and I saw him looking at a book. Back then it was before internet. He was looking at a book. I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, I'm looking at a business to buy." I go, "What kind of business?" He said, "Well, I think I want to buy a real estate brokerage." And I go, "Why is that?" He goes, "Well, I want to stay in the property management side and I'm not licensed." I said, "I'm a broker. Let's go."
Nice.
So that was about 27 years ago. We started the brokerage. It was originally Retail Leasing and Management, Inc. And he was doing the property management of anchored and unanchored shopping centers. And I was doing the leasing and brokerage, trying to broker deals. And everything was great until 9/11 happened, took the wind out of our sails, cut our cash flow. He went back into managing malls, and I went back into the construction business. But I always kept the company going. And then when I decided to go back into the real estate business full time, I actually picked up quite a few unanchored centers I was doing the leasing for, which was an interesting story. So I was still working for landlords. I just stopped doing the property management because at one point my partner had gotten sick and I had to take over the property management. And I learned two things. I was really good at it, but it took away my drive to do deals, which is what I needed to do. So when I went back into real estate full time, I was just representing landlords and tenants, but just on the leasing side. And then a big conglomerate called CoStar bought a beautiful company called LoopNet and basically put all the small brokers out of business. At the time, I had a 10 listing package. It was $164 a quarter to premium list 10 of my listings. And I had 15, so 5 of them I would circulate out every week and do them free. Star bought it, and they immediately said no more free listings and $64 per listing per month. So I went from $164 a quarter to $640 a
A
month.
month. Oh my gosh.
I was doing small deals at the time. So I basically gave back all my listings except for maybe one or two pocket listings, and then exclusively went into tenant representation. And it worked out well for me. I like it. I like my time. I like to exercise, ride my bike. I can take conference calls on my bike. My clients don't mind. They tease me about it sometimes.
I'm sure.
But it's much less accountability. When you're a tenant rep, you're basically in the hurry up and wait business. You go out and find a spot, and you have to hurry up and do that because everyone's anxious, and then you have to put the deal together, and then you sit back and wait. You have to wait for your client to make a decision. You have to wait for the landlord to make a decision. And then when you get a deal done, you have to wait for the municipality to perform so you can get them open. But it is less accountability, and I like my time more. And it's very rewarding. I help young families grow their businesses. I was actually on a site tour with one of my favorite clients, the Pedrino family, and they're in the third generation of the restaurant business. I first met
Oh, nice.
Mario. He's about my age, and we were just talking about this. We went out on a site tour about 15 years ago. It was him and I and his 90-year-old father, who was quite with it at the time. He's the one that started the business. They had one restaurant. Mario came in, second generation, and opened up 3 more. And so we were out looking for sites, the 3 of us. His father didn't speak a word of English. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. And Mario was translating. We laughed all day long, had a beautiful experience. Fast forward 15 years later, Mario calls it Pedrino's 3.0, 3 generations. And I've been opening up locations ever since. And we were looking at a site, and it's the city that they want to be in within Broward County. This will be for location number 6. I really can't disclose it because we don't have a deal yet, but it's an ground floor of an office building. And because of the way the deal is going to be structured, they're going to get naming rights to the building. So just like a
Nice.
bank, would be on top. Padrino's is going to be on top of this 6 or 8 story office building
Nice.
with a ground floor restaurant and patio. And it's very exciting. He had to take a step back and had a little bit of tears in his eyes, just so grateful that his 3 children who are in the business have the foresight to know what they're doing and want to move forward with this. And he just sits back and admires his family. And it's been a great experience. The third generation came in. They said, Dad, we need to add bars to our locations. You're only selling beer and wine. Large locations, it was kind of like a religious thing. Sangria and beer and wine, that's it. And the kids came in and said, well, we're just as religious, Dad, but we need to serve alcohol. So we converted some locations. We opened some new ones. Every location now has a bar, and they've systematically doubled and tripled every location that they've had. So it's been a great metamorphosis to this new concept. And it's just so exciting to see family wealth grow. And that's what really excites me about the tenant rep business, helping families grow.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see it in your just the way you presented that story as to how excited you are for their success, because their success is your success. You guys are all brought together, and the fact that you spend this whole day, looking for sites and laughing. You're having a good time with it. Obviously, you're
Yeah.
not too uptight, but clearly you know what you're doing. So what is the key to tenant rep? I mean, what skill set, what do you bring to the table, or what does someone successful in your space bring to the table that someone who's not in, retail would have no idea
Well,
about?
that's a great question. And that's the artistry of the Florida Retail Brokers Network, which we're really rolling out. We have one brokerage network. We have one brokerage network partner in Plantation. They're signed on, and we're really going to roll this out in 2026. The key is the knowledge of the market and the contacts, and that's what I bring to the table. I spend a lot of money networking, going to industry events. ICSC, which used to be known as International Council of Shopping Centers, was rebranded about 5 years ago to Innovating Commerce, Serving Communities. It's the largest retail trade organization for retail in the world. There's over 60,000 members. We have an annual conference in Florida, the Florida Conference, that brings in about 4,000 to 4,200 professionals. That's where I launched my scholarship company. In the last 4 years, we've actually sent 70 retail students, real estate students, to that conference. We give them 2 to 3 nights lodging, provide room and board. We give them business cards, and we actually set them up with, well, this year we set them up with 12 appointments. So with professionals to learn the business.
Oh, nice.
So, and the reason why I'm able to do that is because in a room like that, being at that conference, I've only missed one in the last 35 years. So everybody knows me. It's contacts, it's access, it's networking. And I probably go to 3 or 4, maybe 5 events around the state every year. So that's what it is. So when a commercial broker calls a retail agent, they may or may not pick up the phone. When I call, they're picking up the phone because they know I've got a deal for them and they know I understand the business. When I first got started on the landlord side and I would take sign calls, I knew right away if I was talking to a commercial broker or specifically a retail broker versus a realtor. Because the first question out of a realtor's mouth is not what do you have available, not can we do something, it's how much is in it for me. It used to drive me crazy. And 100% of the time, that's what it was. And they just don't have the knowledge. They don't have the savvy. They don't know anything about the business. They just think, well, I do houses, so I can do commercial. But that goes back to your question. No, that's not true. Yes, you can affect a deal, but you are not going to do right by your client if you don't have a command of the market, if you don't know what market rents are, if you don't know what this restaurant is paying down the street, or what they're asking for is not market rent, it's what they're actually paying. And the relationships that I have by networking month after month, year after year, allows me to pick up the phone and say, hey, Meredith, how much are you getting for this space? We talk, we share information. Commercial brokers don't have that kind of access, and the Florida Retail Brokers Network provides that access. So that's going to improve their ability to do more retail and restaurant deals going forward, which is why commercial brokers are interested in joining in Florida.
Oh, interesting. So tell us more about the actual Florida Retail Brokers Network and its just succinctly, maybe the purpose? You're saying it's to share knowledge, it's to create a community, it's to, how would you describe it, Jeffrey?
It's to teach the tenant rep business. So if you sign on as a brokers network member, you're going to have a protected territory. For example, Broward County, we're going to have two brokers, one on the east side, one on the west side. Miami-Dade County, we think we can do six. Palm Beach County, we think we could do four. And then we'll just go county by county and add based on territory and coverage. So the first thing we do is we require them to take on a full-time intern. We want to put a real estate student in that capacity. Now, our commitment is to take them and train them canvassing. So we put them out on the street and we teach them how to canvass for tenant rep assignments. Now, as I mentioned, a commercial brokerage represents tenants, but they don't specialize in it. They don't look for tenants to represent. What they do is they take a sign call, and if they can't put them in their property that they have a listing for, they'll sometimes say, why don't I see if I can go find you something else? So this is a specialty which will add value to their individual brokerage. And that's what we're going to do. And then, of course, once we have the entire state set up, now we can compete as an organization against the conglomerates, against the Goliaths that are out there, like JLF, like CBRE, like Colliers, the big companies that are just, they're just big in-house international companies, and a small brokerage like mine can't compete against them. So if I have a brokerage network set up, then we all can compete. So that's kind of how we're doing that. So we train real estate students, which is a passion of mine, to get into the business. Because the reality is that the real estate schools, specifically in Florida, they don't teach the brokerage business. They're starting to hear my mantra, and I know Florida State in particular is launching a brokerage course in 2026 for the first time. But by and large, they teach finance, they teach development, they teach acquisitions, and they teach development. But the reality is there are so many students that are learning it now that there's not enough business for these students to get. So I'm going to say conservatively that at least 50% of those students and probably more end up having to go into the brokerage business as a consolation prize. So my mission over the next 5 years through our scholarship company is to change that and actually teach that brokerage is a noble profession. And why not go into that as opposed to just getting into it because as a consolation prize. So that's what I'm trying to do with it. And I think I'll be successful. And like I said, like they go into the brokerage with no skill set, no product knowledge. And so we're teaching that through our scholarship company and through the Florida Retail Brokers Network. And it's very exciting.
No, you can tell your enthusiasm around this, and
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for explaining that. Trying to compete with the big guys that are out there, I can see that being incredibly important. And you're using your name, your reputation, and the fact that you're motivated to do this sounds like the right way with the scholarships and systematically bringing students in that are going to become professionals in this space, and it builds the network and it helps them. So I don't know, you're building something that sounds like it's going to be very powerful and very important.
It's very exciting. Most entrepreneurs get started off at a much earlier age. And let's face it, in the commercial space, people that look like me kind of age out. If you work for a company, the larger companies, all of my colleagues, my peers, they figure out a way. It's the craziest thing. I don't know how they get away with it. It's blatant age discrimination, but they get away with it and they go away. And I'm not in that space, and I've got a lot more to do with my career, and I'm able to do that as an independent broker. So, but to start and add these other companies from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's a lot harder at my age. It takes a lot more energy. I wish I would have thought to do this, but I had different priorities when I was
Right.
younger, and
Yes.
I'm doing it now.
Yeah, no, it's never too late. I mean, you go
Nope.
along with all your experience, maybe it just wasn't the right time for you or, previously
Right.
in life. And so no apologies required for any of that, Jeffrey. I mean, I can see where this is going to go. Let's shift gears just a little bit here. Tell us more
Sure.
about Jeffrey and your priorities and kind of your story. Are you from Florida? Where are you originally from?
I was an Army brat. Growing up, I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and my father was taught high school German, and wanted to get out of this small town. It was back then it was maybe a population of 98,000. Now I think it's down to 45,000,
Wow.
which is kind of sad. It was an old coal mining town at the time. And he took ROTC in high school and got his commission and went into the Army. And we just moved. We lived in, as a very young child, I lived in Fort Knox, Kentucky, Fairbanks, Alaska.
Wow.
We moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and the Army sent my dad to Vietnam for a year. And I didn't see him. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. My mother was able to see him halfway through the year. They gave him a 2-week vacation and they met in Hawaii. I had a younger brother. I had two brothers, but my youngest brother was a month old when my father left. So he
Oh,
missed the
wow.
entire first year of his life. But it kind of, moving around kind of rounded my personality, I guess, a little bit. I had to start over. But at the same time, I wasn't able to create long-term relationships. That's how I got started. And then, so I grew up pretty much in Baltimore. I went to different schools. My grandfather and uncle had a mechanical construction business in the Poconos, and my goal was to move back after school. So at first I tried construction management at Utica College of Syracuse University, found out it was more related to residential construction, which I wasn't interested in. Then I went to Arizona State University to their they had a construction management program, and that was more engineering geared. And I just remember biting all my fingernails off trying to learn calculus and static mechanics. So I kind of gave that up and ended up at University of Baltimore under, well, I started off in production management and ended up in business administration just to get out. So I did that. I went into the family business for a little while, trying to grow a fire protection company as a salesman. Had some success with that. Then I had a back injury and I needed to rehab. So I moved down to Florida where my parents were, and I saw the opportunities. Opened up at the time a non-branded, back then it was mailboxes, etc. And I opened up I hired the consultant who was growing mailboxes, etc., and opened up an unbranded one called the Parcel Shipping Center, renting out mailboxes, providing services. And that's when I, met some people in North Dade, which led to a good friend of mine who had a company called A Job for You, which was a temporary employment agency. And he said to me, I told him I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. Had a little tiff in the family, needed to get out. And he arranged this job interview with the store fixture company, which led to design and construction and real estate. And that's where it is now. So when I started in the store fixture company, I used to travel to different cities, first in Florida and then Atlanta. I would identify all the malls and I would systematically go to every single mall in every market and meet the merchants and try to sell them store fixtures out of the catalog. And then it, like I said, then it just turned into tenant rep. So I had that skill set of learning how to speak, not sell, but speak to merchants. And when the right opportunity came along, that's when I would pick up a tenant rep assignment. It's a no-brainer for a merchant because, in the real estate business, you don't charge consulting fees to tenants. You get paid by the landlord.
Mm-hmm, right.
So it's a great opportunity for them. Why should they negotiate deals on their own when they may negotiate one or two or maybe six in their lifetime unless they grow really big? And a commercial tenant rep like myself is negotiating several deals a month. So, and plus I know what I can get away with. I know what the market will bear. So it makes a lot of sense. It works out really well. And at this stage in my career, it allows me to focus on my family. Like I said, I was telling you earlier, I've got a 13-month-old granddaughter. And aside from the joy I get from that, I just really get a lot of joy out of helping students with our not-for-profit scholarship company. We just don't hand the money, although we do sometimes. We don't just take them to conferences, which we do. We sponsor them to go to other events. We engage in entry-level job opportunities and internships. It's just very fulfilling. And it all came out of my desire to help because I never got I never had a leg up. I never had access. And if I could change that with any student one at a time to be able to provide that access, I'm just happy to do that. It just helps me sleep better at night.
That is perfect. And that's a great mission. So what advice do you give these new students coming into this space?
Get a mentor, network with as many people as you can. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for help. Most professionals are eager to help, and they seem to gravitate towards students who have a more bubbly personality, that are not timid like I was, that are not shy like I was. I'll never forget the first time I went to an ICSE conference. Dave Palumbo, good friend of mine out of Atlanta, he was a shy guy at the time. And we were in this opening reception at ICSE in Orlando. And we were in the back of the room watching all of these people talking and interacting. I didn't know anybody, and I was timid and I was shy. I was too shy to go up and introduce myself. And we just kind of looked at each other and, hey, how you doing? And then next thing you know, it led to a conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
if I only had known then what I know now, I would have gotten a business card from every single person in that
Yes.
room and shook hands with as many people as I could. And that's the skill set that I teach when we send them to the Florida conference, ICSE at Florida, what it's now been rebranded as. We walk through the floor and we talk to people. We learn how to engage them and how to speak to them and what to say and when not to approach them. But I just don't turn them loose. I take them on appointments. I go on every appointment with them. And what we're doing is we're trying to teach them to not read off of a script, but to learn to speak from their own voice with confidence. And then when they've mastered that communication skill, they are now ready to begin the selling process. And of course, you can wing it. I talked to an intern this past week, and he learned very quickly you can outsmart somebody if you don't have the skill set or the product knowledge. It's so much better to say, I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you, because anyone will respect you for doing that. But if you try to fluff your way through it, mislead or lie, you're going to get caught and you're not going to get anywhere. And if you just try up front to walk in on somebody and try to sell them on something, well, you're not doing it. You need to gain rapport through having communications and then see where it leads. You can't go for the close. It's an opening. It's a long dance. And you need to learn that in order to be successful. And that's kind of what I like to do.
Excellent. No, that's great advice that most people don't understand. As far as it's
No.
the great soundbite there was, it is definitely a dance, and you're just getting started.
Yeah.
Where you can ask for the business when the time is right, and not to try to outsmart somebody that knows their business better than you do going in. The advice to say, I don't know. I think most of us are still taught, you shouldn't say you don't know. You should come up with something or another so you look intelligent, but you're clearly not going to look intelligent in that space, and you're not going to have the results that you're looking for, if you are just trying to wing it. So no, that makes sense to me, especially in a
Right.
very specialized space, where people are going to know the business better than you. So that's
I
great
mean,
advice.
even at my age, I'll talk to a new tenant and they'll ask me what the rates are in various markets. Most of the markets in Florida, I know what the going rate is, but I'll still qualify that. I'll say, I'm pretty sure that it's this, but I'm not 100% sure in this exact neighborhood,
Hmm.
but I'll find out. And they respect that. So it's better and I like to downplay it, or I'd rather come in and say, I think it's higher, because then I look like the hero if it's a little bit lower. So I, work with that a little bit, but you have to be honest and upfront. People respect that. People can tell when you're misleading. There's a lot of that in our industry, unfortunately. Some people perceive real estate brokers as almost as bad as used car salesmen, because there are some bad actors. But then there's some good people like me that like to sleep at night and really don't care about the money. I mean, the money's there. You have to make a living, obviously. But if you go into it thinking what's in it for me, that's not the right way to do it. There's tenant rep brokers that I know of that will actually, if they're representing a tenant, specifically a national tenant, and they've got two opportunities, one across the street from each other, and they're fairly equivalent, or maybe they're not, and they think they can get an extra point in a commission, they'll take them across the street.
Mm.
And that's wrong. My philosophy is go where the tenant needs to be, where they're going to be the most successful, and you'll get paid one way or another. And so I never think about what's in it for me. I just think about it, how successful I can be I do regional and national franchise tenants, but my preferred space is the local merchants. And I know that if there's a deal in it for me, if they do a deal, there's something in it for me. And at the end of the year, I either did as well as I did, or I did better. The only year that I did worse was during COVID. and I can live with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've seen this theme in talking with brokers and other people in real estate. And these are the successful people that if you chase it, if you chase the dollars first, that's you're going to lose. I mean, you're going to lose in the long run. You're not doing the right thing for your clients. If it's not about relationships and just about the transaction, then you have the wrong motivations. And
Right?
it may pay in the short run, but it's sure not going to pay in the long run. I've
No,
seen that over and over again when, I'm asking what advice would you give someone, getting started in this, or who's the best candidate in this space? What's the right
right?
personality? Where's the best guidance would you give them? It keeps coming back. And Jeffrey,
Yeah.
you're absolutely, requalifying that and providing that as the standard. I mean, I don't know if it's an
What?
ethics thing or just the right mentor.
Well, it is ethics. One of my favorite expressions. Not funny. My son is a behavior analyst, and
Oh, cool.
he's got a nice company based out of Tennessee. He's got like 50 employees, and he manned the national ethics line. And his professor,
Interesting.
who's world renowned, talked him into writing a book, which is being published in 2026, specifically on ethics. One of my favorite expressions, from my hippie days, was "karma is a bitch," and it is so true. If you take advantage of people, it's going to come back at you in a bad way, a negative way. And if you take care of people, it's always going to be fruitful and is going to help you. Uh, it's faith based. I have my faith. I'm not a religious person, but I have my faith and I believe in a higher power, and it takes me where I want to go. I don't preach. I don't practice, but it helps me. It guides me, and it helps me help others. And it always works out the way it's intended to work out.
Yes, no, that is amazing. Well, we're going to get wrapped up here. Any last words of wisdom, or actually, let's switch that around. If someone wants to contact you, you can give words of wisdom. I think you already have throughout this whole conversation, so thank you for that.
Right?
Sharing all your insights. But if someone wants to learn more about the Florida Retail Brokers Network, where can they go?
Okay, well, I've got several things going on. My websites aren't fully up yet. I've got three that are being built right now.
Okay.
But the main website is floridaretail.com, simple and sweet. If you'd like to reach out to me, GPS, Global Positioning Satellite,
Yes.
GPS at floridaretail.com. Feel free to reach out, and I'll be glad to respond and help you any way that I can. If you're going to solicit me for your business because you're a vendor, you may not hear from me unless I need your service. But I appreciate the opportunity, David, greatly, and look forward to seeing where you go with this new venture that you're doing.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey. We appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for watching this episode of Technologies Now, the Business Edge. And again, this was a broker's perspective episode. If you are interested, follow us here on YouTube at Technologies Now AI, and we'll catch you next time. Excellent. Thanks again, Jeffrey.
My pleasure.